Man, it doesn't feel like Christmas. Remember that one Family Guy joke where Christmas is like somehow canceled and they go around asking people if it feels like Christmas and it doesn't? It feels like that. Okay, maybe it doesn't, but it still don't feel like Christmas, that's for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been walking the streets these past few weeks and I noticed people trying to spread holiday cheer or whatever. They always got those dumb little reindeer ears on their cars, or they're just wearing Santa hats walking around or whatever. But I don't know, it just didn't feel like Christmas. Now this is interesting because this is actually a phenomenon I've been noticing on Twitter since long before 2020 ever happened. I mean, people tend to synchronize behaviorally, if that makes sense. There'll be months that'll just go by like... Okay, don't do that again. There'll be months that'll go by like that, and there'll always be a tweet during those months with like 500,000 likes that'd be like, Christmas is in 2 days? Okay, I get it. My small bubble on the internet might not be representative of the entire American population, but shit, I don't know. You tell me in the comments. Did it feel like Christmas this year for you? I mean, yes, we also haven't considered external factors which might have had a drastic effect on the mood this year. That is, if this year hasn't already had a drastic effect on the mood itself. You know, like the massive psychologically and economically damaging pandemic which struck our country in March and forced us into a social lockdown that, as far as I can tell, has pretty much only gotten worse since then. It's funny because not only did my family have to cancel all of the massive get-together parties that we always do for these types of holidays this year, but some of my cousins still caught the disease, and some of my aunts still found themselves in contact with people who were potential carriers. And I'm not gonna say that all of that shows how incompetent or irresponsible people are acting in response to this virus, especially because I'd be talking about relatives, but I'll just say that it's not my fault that we're all locked inside. But it's somebody's. But we can argue who to assign blame to all day. It still doesn't change the fact that our country's response to this virus pales in comparison to other countries who are already having events such as music festivals due to their general population's common sense and competency. And I'm sure you could say, J-Rod, it's not the general population's fault, it's the damn government's fault. And I'm sure you'd be right. I'm sure this probably all also is exacerbated by the increasingly doom-impending aftermath of the worst, dumbest political election in human history. I'm sorry, I just can't talk about politics right now. 20 years on this earth, 2 whole decades, and for some reason I thought Christmas would get better as I got older. I mean, I never thought that I was gonna get presents until I was 25 or able to afford them myself, but I at least thought that whatever presents I was going to get would be of a more mature or refined nature than that of what I got when I was a kid. For example, my parents talk so much about stocks around me, they could have bought me a couple high-value picks this year. But I suppose chocolate and socks is just as valuable as even a fraction of a Bitcoin, right? I should back up. I mean, I'm not unappreciative of what gifts I did receive this year. Anything is a blessing in and of itself, it's just not what I expected is all. I somewhat wonder if you all share the same or similar sentiment, but then again, you probably actually tell your parents what you want for Christmas. Like, yeah, it was my fault for not telling my parents what I wanted for Christmas beforehand, but I don't know, aren't parents supposed to know what their kid wants without them telling them? That's not the main point I'm trying to make here though. It makes me sound like I'm complaining. No, I'm just trying to transition into this other reason that Christmas this year didn't really feel like Christmas, and that is that I didn't really want anything in the first place. I remember when writing up the script for this video originally, I thought it was gonna be all about the hypercapitalization of Christmas and how we needed to transition away from giving gifts to kids and more towards treating it as just time to get together with family. But I think what had happened was I wrote up the first page for that, and then after that I just ran out of ideas. Whatever. Getting back on topic, life is very odd and surreal for me right now, and that's a very oversimplified explanation of what's actually going on, but I don't even have the mental capacity or energy to answer that question off camera, nonetheless on it. So all you need to really know off that is that basically I just didn't want anything this year, and What I did want was either too expensive or too unrealistic to expect, or I don't know, maybe I just never conveyed it to my parents clearly enough or something. Which is boof though, because then you wake up on Christmas and open presents, and then it's just like boom, right back to where you were the day before. Nothing changed. But to be clear though, this has been happening for Christmases leading up to this one. Hell, even some of those where I actually received what I wanted. I somewhat expected this, and I didn't really care what I got either way. Hell, maybe you've had this experience with your Christmas presents, present and past. Let me know in the comments. All I'm trying to say is that it's just another reason why Christmas this year didn't really feel like Christmas. At least for me. So what do we got so far? We got a shitty election cycle, a society destabilizing pandemic, a lack of expectation or optimism going into the holiday to begin with, and I suppose that all of this manifests into the lack of holiday spirit and cheer that we see. Or maybe you completely disagree with me. I don't know. Leave a comment. Maybe that also contributes to why certain months sometimes seem like they go by so quickly, because with the lack of expectation or any hope or promise for the nearby future, there's really nothing to look forward to. I'll elucidate a little more on what I mean on that in a minute, but first, just think about it like this. When I was a kid, December never felt like a quick month when I had one of those advent calendars. Granted, I was a kid and so all months moved by like molasses, but just think about the situation in general for a second. I had so much more to look forward to, and I was so much more focused on the countdown as a result. I had much more to expect from those Christmases, of course, but I think the same logic still applies to the modern day regardless. If we had much more to expect and hope for, especially this Christmas, the month might have felt a bit longer. And again, you might disagree with me, but I don't know. I see a lot of the same comments on Twitter and various other social medias. But I guess this thus brings us to the crux of this video, and that is and always with every video that I make, why am I making it? Because it didn't feel like Christmas. And it really just hit me this Christmas. Like, damn, I really don't enjoy anything about this shit at all. I mean, even if my parents got me quite literally everything that I wanted, and to be clear, they didn't, I'd be mad that they indulged so heavily into the hypercapitalization of the holiday. Which is funny because that's essentially confessing that I would have been down regardless of how this Christmas turned out for me. But less funny is that I just realized this goes to show just how much of this holiday and the spirit and cheer for it survive and thrive off of the capitalism that facilitates it, particularly because it's so beneficial for the companies and corporations that make it happen. And you might be saying, that's not what Christmas is about, J-Rod. Christmas is about getting the family together and the giving of spirit and cheer in a time which is traditionally very bleak, cold, harsh, and resource intensive with little resources to show for it. I mean, maybe in the 1800s and before, but we don't really have to worry about resource management anymore, at least not on a micro-communal or individual level like I just described. And on the former point, did you see your family this year? Because like I said, my family didn't get together this year, and what little we did still could have been a spreader event. Whatever. If this was a real argument, we could go back and forth for hours, but I've already made my point, and that is that it just doesn't feel like Christmas. I think that's all I have to say for this video, and if not, it's gonna have to be because this is taking way too long to record. I don't know why, I just felt the need to make this video. That being said, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and comment any suggestions you might have as improvements for me and this channel going into the future below. Aside from that, I don't really want to waste any more of your time, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then though, always remember to think philosophically.